You know what's really messed up? Right now, millions of adults are walking around feeling like they're drowning in responsibilities. Can't say no to anyone and genuinely believe that rest is somehow wrong. And here's the kicker. They have no idea this all started when they were just kids. What if I told you that the mature child everyone praised, the responsible one who always had it together, that kid was actually experiencing a form of invisible trauma that scientists are now calling one of the most damaging things that can happen to a developing brain? Yeah, we need to talk about this. So here's what actually happens. Picture a 10-year-old kid. Maybe they're checking on mom because dad's drinking again. Maybe they're managing their younger siblings because mom's dealing with depression. Or maybe they're just the therapist for their parents' marriage problems. This has a name. It's called parentification. And according to a massive 2023 study from the University of Illinois that analyzed research from 6 continents, it's way more common than anyone wants to admit. But here's where it gets wild. Society actually rewards these kids. Teachers call them so mature for their age. Family members say they're such a big helper. Everyone's praising them while their childhood is literally being stolen. The research is crystal clear on this. When kids take on adult roles, their brains don't get to develop the way they're supposed to. They're too busy surviving to actually, be kids. And look, if this is already hitting a little too close to home, do me a favor and hit that like button. Seriously, it helps more people who need to hear this actually find it. Now check this out. A 23 study in Nature Neuroscience just discovered something absolutely fascinating. They looked at the brains of adults who grew up too fast, and guess what they found? The connection between the prefrontal cortex, that's your decision-making center, and the amygdala, your fear center, is literally wired differently. These people's brains are stuck in what researchers call heightened hypervigilance, even when there's zero actual threat. Translation? You become what I call an emotional thermostat. You're constantly scanning the room, reading everyone's mood, trying to predict what's going to happen next. You learned as a kid that if you could just sense the danger early enough, maybe you could prevent it. But here's the twist. Your brain never learned to turn that off. So now you're 40 years old, sitting in a completely safe coffee shop, and you're still monitoring everyone's emotional temperature like your life depends on it. Quick question. Does this sound familiar? Like at all? Drop a comment, because I'm genuinely curious how many of us are walking around with this pattern. All right, so let's talk about what this actually looks like in your adult life, because it's not subtle. First up, hyper-independence, and I'm not talking about healthy self-reliance. I'm talking about the bone-deep belief that asking for help is basically admitting weakness, that accepting support means you're a burden. You know what that is? That's a kid who learned that love was transactional. You had to earn it by being useful, by solving problems, by never having needs of your own. Then there's the guilt around rest, like actual physical anxiety when you're now not being productive. The 2025 research out of the International Journal shows that parentified adults often experience what's called emotional burnout because their worth was tied to caretaking from such a young age that their nervous system literally doesn't know how to relax. Wait, it gets even crazier. These patterns don't just mess with your head. Studies are now linking this to relationship struggles, difficulty setting boundaries, and this thing where you become the fixer in every friendship or romantic relationship. You're so used to managing everyone else's emotions that you don't even know what your emotions are anymore. And if you're sitting here thinking, oh my God, that's literally me, you're definitely not subscribed yet, are you? Click that button so you don't miss what's coming next, because we're about to talk about how to actually heal from this. Here's the thing that might surprise you. Healing from this is possible, but it requires something that's going to feel really uncomfortable at first. You have to validate that what happened to you was wrong. Not my parents did their best. Not other people had it worse. The research is clear. If you had to be the adult when you were supposed to be the child, that was traumatic, period. The latest therapeutic approaches focus on what's called inner child work. And I know that sounds super woo-woo, but stick with me. It's literally about reconnecting with the part of you that never got to be protected, never got to play, never got to rest. You're essentially reparenting yourself, giving yourself permission to need things, to not have all the answers, to be imperfect and still be worthy of love. There's also this crucial step that most people skip: grief. You have to let yourself feel angry about what you lost, not in a bitter way, but in an honest way. That innocence you lost, that childhood you never got to have, it's okay to mourn that. Recent studies on trauma recovery show that people who allow themselves to process this grief, the rage, the sadness, all of it, actually break free from these patterns faster than people who try to think their way through it. And then comes the hardest part: choosing softness. After spending your whole life in survival mode, being strong, never asking for help, you have to learn that vulnerability isn't weakness, that your needs matter, that you can say no without the world falling apart. Look, here's what I want you to take away from this. If you grew up too fast, if you were the emotional caretaker in your family, if you learned that your feelings were a burden, that wasn't your fault. You were a kid doing what you had to do to survive. But you're not that kid anymore. The patterns that kept you safe back then, they're probably the same ones keeping you stuck right now. And recognizing that, really seeing it for what it is, that's not weakness. That's actually the bravest thing you can do. Because here's the truth that no one tells you. You don't have to earn the right to take up space. You don't have to be useful to be loved. And rest isn't something you need to deserve. You deserved a childhood. You deserve protection. And you deserve right now to finally put yourself first. What would it feel like to stop being everyone's emotional thermostat? To just exist without constantly managing everyone else's feelings? Think about that. If this video resonated with you, make sure you're subscribed to Psycho Secrets. We're diving deep into the psychology that actually matters. The stuff that helps you understand why you are the way you are. Hit that subscribe button and join us.